Thank you. And good evening to the official part of tonight's February Council meeting. Welcome gallery, welcome councillors and council officers as well. If I could begin with the statement of acknowledgement, we acknowledge the traditional owners of this land in which we are meeting and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and those from other communities who are with us today, for they hold the memories, the tradition and the culture of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Item 3 on our agenda is apologies and requests for leave of absence. Is there any? Not that I am aware of. Item 4 is declaration under Acts, regulations, codes or local laws, which there is none. Item 5, declarations by councillors of any conflict of interest. I don't think there's any this evening, councillors. Item 6 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. We've got 2 lots, and my suggestion, can we move both of those together? Let's move them separately, shall we? So let's do the first one on page 3. Can I have someone move that? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Thanks, Councillor Mitchell. Any comment? Anybody need to disagree with those? If not, I'll put the motion. Councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Second lot of minutes is there on page 4. Can I have someone move? Thank you, Councillor Hall. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Anybody need to speak against that? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. They are adopted. Item 7 is delegates report, of which there is none this month. Item 8 is officers' reports for determination. 8.1. Councillors, the recommendation from officers around the appointment of an acting CEO is there on page 11. Can I have a mover of that? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Did you wish to speak to that, Councillor Watson? Councillor Lowe? Any other councillors? Anybody wish to speak against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. I hope you have a nice short break, CEO. Item 8.2 is the privacy policy and the recommendation to adopt the attachment. Councillors, which you will have a copy of, is there on page 14. Do I have someone move that? Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett, any comment? Councillor Watson? No. Any other councillor? No. It's a matter of due process. Councillors, motion is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. We might not bore any young'uns yet. Item 8.3, December 2019 Quarterly Finance Report. I'm just going to find our recommendation. The recommendation is there on page 32 to approve that report. Can I have someone put that motion? Thanks, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor, just give me a nod. Thank you. Councillor Lowe, a seconder. Councillor Mitchell, did you want to have comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The quarterly report is very clear and concise. It's accurate and reflects the good work that's being done by our finance department. Thank you.
Yeah, probably. Obviously, this is one of the major jobs of councillors is to double check that council is spending where they should be spending and not where they should be spending somewhere else. But one thing I want to highlight in this, whilst it looks very good on paper that the salary and wages is $503K lower than expected at this time of the year, there becomes a tipping point where when you're understaffed and under-resourced, will start costing you money, and whether that's in monetary terms as in the green, or whether it's in time management stuff due to and stress on staff levels as well. So I am conscious that there is a few vacancies within staffing within council, and the quicker that we can get them filled would be better for overall staff. So again, while it looks very good on paper, it's probably not too good at ground level. So I just want to highlight that.
No, Councillor, you just indulge me just quickly, on page 15, you'll notice there's a new executive summary. That's been an addition thanks to the finance team. It really does helps, I guess, demystify and unravel some of the numbers for people who aren't used to reading financials. It does help highlight some of the, I guess, some of the important components, particularly in each of these quarterly reports. They are really important reports, and councillors do use them as we go through our thinking, particularly as we look around rebudgeting and know what we've got about that halfway point. You know, when it's looking like we're $250,000 up in our staffing, what does that mean? Is there outcomes? What should we be doing for the next budget? Working with the CEO in and around those frameworks. It becomes a very important document for us to go forward, but I really like that new executive summary. Thank you very much. Councillor Mitchell, back to you for any close, if there's any. No, councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.4 is the tender for Junction Square Precinct 1 landscape works. There's been a bit of media not always correct around this already. Councillors, the motion is there on page 39, or the recommendation from ministers. I am drinking green tea. Perhaps it should have been chamomile. Do I have someone move that as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Watson.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this tender, the landscape works. For those who are not sure where this is, it's on the Jackal Way, corner of that and High Street, and at the moment it's quite an eyesore. Council has been able to obtain a 7-year lease to take ownership of this and now make it into another public area and a green space. And some additional car parking or part-time car parking. I think it's just one of those things we do for our community to make our High Street, our CBA precinct look neat and tidy, because we keep it neat and tidy, hopefully all our traders and everyone else in our city do. So I think it's a great thing that we don't have a wide fence barrier around a vacant lot. So I'm more than happy to move that for our city.
Just a few points about the funding for this. So I did see some commentary about council funding the whole thing. So as it says in this report, it's about 50-50 with the National Stronger Regions funding and us, which is really good. And there's no way we would get federal funding unless we had a contribution or a commitment by ourselves. Another good thing about this is this was originally for the CBD revitalisation works, and we came in under budget for a few of those things. So this is actually money that we've saved from other projects that we're able to use this for, and that's thanks to our mayor being able to negotiate that. So thanks very much, because this will be such a fantastic space. Another thing that I really like about this is just more shade for the CBD. I think in so many forums we hear about the need for shade, so that'll be fantastic. And I know some of the, another thing is we'll be using recycled crushed granite surfaces, so that's great to have that circular economy in this as well. So as on page 39, it'll start about March and be completed June, so that's a pretty quick turnaround time. And we'll have some maps up on our website about what the space will look like. So that'll be great for the community to really see what that will look like. Similar to with the library, it's been fantastic having such good visuals so people can really understand what we're going to be doing.
So council's looking at spending about $415,000, which is we've allocated for this project. To leave a space like it is for the next 7 years really isn't ideal, and I think if we can, get an attractive green space in the centre there that adds to the Junction Square, it will just give it that little bit of oomph in the High Street area, CBD. So I'm supporting it. I think it's a necessary spend going forward. So.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This will be really good for making the place look neat and tidy and presentable in another public space. But I think it's important at the same time that we acknowledge that this is a 7-year term, and that after the 7-year term, or some point thereabouts, there might be extensions perhaps, but after the 7-year term, this is developable and development land, the subject of the Central Place development, and we just need to keep the community aware that it's only there for that period of time, and that at the end of the time it needs to revert back to development land. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'll probably echo my fellow councillors' words there, and hopefully it doesn't take the 7 years either before it is developed. Hopefully there's uptake of that development before then. But I think it should be highlighted too about the National Stronger Regions Fund, how we access that money as well. It was due to savings that we made during other projects on High Street and the CBD. So the fact that the federal government, and we've got to tip your hat where it's due, is that they've allowed us access to the remaining of those funds to be used, again, in the same area that they thought it was, but it was through savings. And also to hats off to the landscaper that's been recommended here as well. It's, you know, they've got the team and the capabilities and do really good work, but it's probably one of the few tenderers I've seen that if they don't use up all the funds, they actually hand back the money for us to use somewhere else. So, you know, again, credit where it's due. Thank you.
Councillor Bishop, did you want to say anything? No? Councillors, if you just indulge me a little bit, on page 37, it actually gives us the breakdown of the total for the tender. So it actually is across multiple things. So yes, it is on precinct 1, and council's contribution will be around 175,000. And as we've already heard, the other component comes from National Stronger Regions. The other components are around some demolition. It included us being able to go back and request some demolition funds and some funds towards our library knockdown, particularly since we were very unfortunate and missed out on state funding that we had hoped we would receive towards that project. So this certainly assisted us. And then the other component is the very untidy bit between the platform and the current new Richardson Park. So it is going to be great to see more green space down there. I'd like to personally thank the Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister's office, for working very closely with us and swiftly turning around the acquittal on those funds that were saved. We went back in with a very sensible argument, but sometimes sense doesn't always win out the day. But to be able to work very closely with them, I would like to personally thank the Minister, because he took my calls and my requests around accessing those funds. So what it means, councillors, is we're $410,000 better off in our budget. That's good news to anybody. That means that we can reinvest that money back in other projects for our community, and I think that means everybody wins. We will absolutely beautify the most visited spot in both Albury and Wodonga, which is Junction Place, and we'll continue to see that prosper, draw new people and our own community into our CBD, and it becomes incredibly vital and energetic in terms of its appearance and also offerings. And again, you know, we're seeing new stuff delivered every day. So, Councillor Watson, did you have anything to close?
I mean, I'd like to endorse those final comments you made too, but Councillor Mildred made a very apt comment where this is developable land, so, you know, if people protest in 7 years' time that we're going to change from green, we must make sure that it's very well documented, so that that is there for the 7 years or shorter period or maybe extended period, but it is there for the development of our city. So, but we might choose it also to keep it green, so well, the developers may.
Councillors, thank you. The motion is there before us on page 39. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.5, Footpath and Recreation Path Renewal Program for 2019-2020. The officer's recommendation is there on page 45. Do I have someone put that motion on or an alternate, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Seconder? Thanks, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lowe.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've got two questions to Leon, if I may. One was when this tender was put out, were the applicants aware of that the chances of this that could go to a panel, or were they tendering on the whole works as a whole? And the reason why I asked that question is, if they thought they were going for the tender as a whole, their rates might change if they're only doing part thereof each program. And my second question to that is, the reasoning in the recommendation at the moment is, or in the report, to go to a panel of providers is to speed up the process of the renewal program. Just wondering how much it's going to speed it up, and where that will lay in the renewal program. Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you, Councillor Lowe, the first question, yes, the tender documents made it pretty clear to submitters that they would be forming part of a construction panel for the works. It was set out quite clearly in Schedule 1 of the tender documentation. That tender documentation simply had a schedule of rates and not necessarily locations where the works will be undertaken. Those works will be limited to about $409,000 for the rest of the year, rest of the financial year. With regard to how do we allocate the works to the individual contractors on the panel, it will be on current workloads of the contractors, as well as we will try and allocate works in packages that works undertaken in specific areas of town, so that a contractor can move into West Wodonga, as an example, and undertake a set of works in West Wodonga. It's efficient and allows them to undertake the works quite rapidly. Having three contractors on the panel also enables us to get the works done quicker. As you know, we do have wet winters, and we want to make sure that those works are well and truly completed by the time the weather changes. So it should expedite the works program by having the three contractors on the panel.
Footpaths are an ongoing requirement for council, and they need to be kept in good order. The community have an expectation from council that we provide this to share the works, as Officer Schultz has said, with 7 contractors does make sense. The workload will be, if we share this between the, say, 3 contractors, we will end up with an expedient and efficient outcome, and I think that's the best way going forward, especially as Officer Schultz said, that it, with winter coming on, we can get that works up and going and completed by that time. So thank you. Cool.
Just good to see that all 3 contractors are all local employers and all support communities, local charities, and give training opportunities as well. Thank you.
Councillor, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.6, Sport and Recreation Victoria Funding Programs 2020-2021. I know that there is an alternate motion, Councillor Bennett, that you've circulated. Did you want to move that? And then would you kindly read that out, and then I'll look for a seconder.
My motion is 1, that council apply for funding for $240,000 to upgrade Kelly Park LED lighting under the 2019-20 World Game Facilities Fund, with a total project cost of $360,000 and a council contribution of $120,000. 2, that subject to a confirmed contribution of $25,000 from Cricket Albury Wodonga prior to the grant submission date of 13th of March 2020, and a confirmed contribution of $170,000 from Albury City Council prior to the grant submission date of 157,500. Council apply for funding for 100,000 through the Community Cricket Program and 50,000 through the Australia Cricket Infrastructure Fund to develop Birrelea Park outdoor cricket nets with a total project cost of 450,000 and a council contribution of 137,000. Lots of numbers.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, I'd just like to clarify, you've named it as Birrelea Park outdoor cricket nets. It's actually the Wodonga Regional Cricket Hub. Could we put those words in there, because I think it will aid and stop any confusion in the community? Is that okay? Because I just want to make sure we've got that clear.
So I actually said one number wrong. So at the very, the last one was meant to be 137,500. I keep forgetting the 500 of things.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Mildred. Councillor Bennett, I'm having trouble with names tonight. Councillor Bennett, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, just really quickly, I completely endorse and support everything in here for the soccer, but we also had a discussion today as councils about looking to support the cricket as well. With this motion, it does safeguard our funding, so it's relying on other stakeholders coming to the table and making a contribution as well.
Thank you. If we're successful in getting this funding, this will be a very important continuation of the cricket academy that we've spent quite a bit of effort on in the last 12 or 18 months or so in bringing it to fruition. Not only does it give some level of conclusion to that project and that facility, but it also will, if we can successfully get this money, it will also give us a much higher opportunity to attract some fairly significant cricket events to this local community. Events that we will not get if we don't have the facilities to match what the requirements are, and these facilities will go a long way to matching those requirements. So I think we really do need to push hard to make sure we can get these grants and make this come to fruition. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'm going to echo my fellow councillors' words there. I'm very much in support, and when I first read the officer's recommendation, I did query it, and I was wondering why we weren't trying to access the funding for the cricket that had up for this year, and the opportunity for access to that funding. And pun intended here, I believe in that you can't hit the stumps unless you have a shot at them. And I think this is a very good way of us having a shot at the stumps to reach this funding, while safeguarding other avenues and making sure that we're doing our due diligence in our budgetary consent. And I agree with Councillor Mildred, there's no point having a 90% finished facility there when we have the opportunity now to have a 100% finished facility. And the whole reason why we built this facility was to give a pathway for our junior cricketers regionally. And I use that word very much so as regionals. Stop sending our kids away to grow their talents. Let's bring kids here to grow their talents and give them opportunities. So hopefully Aubrey City, who have been a great supporter of this facility so far, I hope they continue to do so, and also the other stakeholders that we're trying to engage by accessing this additional funding. Thank you.
Yeah, this will just add to what we're already going to have as a fantastic facility in Wodonga, and so I'm really keen to support this. You know, with a spend of $137,500 to get a $450,000 project up and completed would be a great outcome for the council and for the community as a whole. So yeah, it's a good if it goes ahead, it's a good thing going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, thanks, bless you. Thank you to the team and Deb in particular We have worked really closely with Cricket Albury Wodonga, and I'd like to recognise Michael Erkeljack in the hard work that he's done to actually try and put this together and also advocate on our behalf and our communities and regions' behalf in terms of continuing to attract funding. I think that this project, the Albury Wodonga Regional Cricket Hub, absolutely epitomises our two cities, one community, but it actually does things, I guess it's a little broader than that, and it is a true regional hub. And again, it will support not only both cities, but that wider regional component as well as being an economic driver in its own right. To a few semantics though, so those with keen financials, just to understand that our intent is actually to put it across 2 financial years, so that it'd be the 2021 budget and 21-22 budget. That allows us to spread that payment, and also in terms of planning the build, given that we've got subject to in there. And again, I'd like to thank Albury, who continue to be our partners and stand with us in terms of looking very strategically at our assets that we both use as cities and that benefit our community as a whole. So we'll continue to work with Albury. They have yet to consider this, but this is a terrific project, so it is a good one to have forward and to actually have up. So thank you, Councillor Bennett, for putting the motion. Over to you to close.
Just one final comment, I think I probably speak on behalf of everyone around the table, is that we've got some amazing community, people in our community with who are obviously very passionate and committed to cricket, and they have put in so much work and dedication and commitment to get this up and going. So thank you so much for your just never-ending dedication to cricket.
Thank you, councillors. The motion, I'm not going to get you to read it again, Councillor Bennett. There is the 2 parts. Part 1 being the funding for Kelly Park, and Part 2 with the subject to for the Albury Wodonga Regional Cricket Hub. There, councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.7, La Trobe University Student Awards. There is a... See ya, Charlie. The recommendation from officers is there on page 53. Do I have someone put that as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett.
So this looks at some funding for some awards at the La Trobe graduation. I think it's 4 awards. So we rejigged our funding, and our previous sponsorship of this didn't quite fit this, but La Trobe did contact us and see if we would still be keen to contribute, and I really hope that we can. I think I've been to the graduation ceremony for the last, 6 or 7 years, and it's amazing what the students are achieving there. I know La Trobe has one of the La Trobe Albury Wodonga has one of the highest rates of students attending that campus that are the first in their family to ever attend tertiary education. They do some amazing programs down there. And when we look at what makes a sustainable and thriving regional city, one of the key pillars is a tertiary institute. So it's fantastic that we can support them in this small way. I did note that Albury City actually, previously, that might change, but they sponsor some awards for La Trobe, and they also sponsor some awards for CSU. But we don't sponsor any awards for CSU. Just something to note.
One of our most important assets in our community is our education, and this is the La Trobe, our university. So in supporting that in kind or for students to attend, I think it's a fantastic thing, and hopefully we can grow on it in years to come.
Yeah, probably. Again, echo Councillor's words, and also add to that, and just picking up on Councillor Bennett's point of not sponsoring or offering any scholarships to the other university, but also talked about those universities as a whole in both of them. I think we have an opportunity to even expand on what we're doing now and really getting behind some of our creating some pathways to make it easier for our local, I'm going to call it talent, looking for a better description, and helping some of these young students follow a pathway of their dreams, but retain their talent once they've gone through their uni quite often we're losing, or we did lose our young talent away from the region, and they come back later and settle in life. But it'd be great to keep some of this young talent here and show them that we've got the opportunities around here, we've got the pathways around here, and help support them in achieving their dreams and using their dreams and their skills to help us locally. So I think we have an opportunity, and hopefully we can discuss as councillors in more depth about what we can do to offer some of these kids some pathways. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a really good small contribution to the education process and supporting the Trobe students. I think there's another opportunity for council that we should thoroughly explore. I thought about coming up with an additional motion to run with this, but figured I'll just put it in the equation anyway. But I think there's an opportunity for us to use funds that we would ordinarily be using to do evaluations and investigation projects in various different things, where we could actually get those projects done by by students doing PhDs or similar from the universities, could be either side of the river. And I think it would be a method of engaging our student communities and getting work that we would otherwise be paying a consultant to do. We may have some additional costs that we need to restructure around in terms of supervision and so on, but I think we've got the capabilities to deal with that. And I think the education institutions in town here have got the capabilities to do it as well. And part of the reason why I think of this is I did a similar sort of thing in my undergraduate degree with some design work in Canberra all those many years ago. And it's been really interesting to go back to Canberra and see this stuff implemented. So for students to come here and do the same sorts of things and come back years later and see what we can achieve, I think it'd be a great outcome. So I'd like to put that in the pot for staff to evaluate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think pretty well everything has been said tonight, but I would just like to say that if we can't support our students in a progressive and an ongoing fashion, well, we're not really fair income. And this is a great way of doing it, and I commend the motion.
So I'm just trying to remember now, it was Councillor Bennett who actually put the motion, but I think all the comments have been spot on. It's so important that we grow our own and nurture our own and provide those opportunities. So I look forward to looking at some of the research opportunities that we might engage in. The universities, the TAFEs, and our whole education sector is absolutely crucial and fundamental in our planning for new businesses coming here, our regional deal, and how we go forward as a city and cities, absolutely essential. So being able to support them in a small way, I think, makes sense to me. Councillor Bennett, did you have any other further comment?
Yes, totally support Councillor Mildren's comments, and I know the Trobe here, I spent 8 very long years of my life there, and in that time has really dramatically changed, and certainly their involvement with the community and with businesses has definitely grown. I'd say probably a couple of times a term I'm involved with research projects in my Gateway Health hat on, so it would be great to see them more involved in some council work.
Councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Supported unanimously. Item 8.8 is the transfer of Reserve 1, PS 319159J, C. Smith family, to North East Water. The recommendation is there on page 56. Do I have someone put that as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Watson.
When local government lost control of water some many moons ago now, and North East Water was formulated under government control and government appointments, I think this is one thing that just got missed in the transfer over of leases and ownership. So it's only a very small amount of area, and with our goodwill, if it's approved tonight, I think it is a good thing to tidy it up, because I believe they're wanting to do some development down there, or some in upgrading. So it's important that we get this through for them.
Just one point from me, the financial implications. So North East Water would be responsible for all the legal costs associated with this transfer. That's nice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst on the face of it, this looks open and shut, like a clear transfer of land that got slipped through the net, if you like, back in the mid-1990s, when the separation of water and sewage functions was taken from council and put into, in this case, North East Water. I'm a little perplexed in some ways, because I can see the practical sense in doing what's being asked to be done, yet in the information that's been put before me, I don't see a title that tells me what the purpose of the reserve is or why council had the reserve. The fact that it's in the middle of a North East Water facility suggests to me that it probably is correctly related to that, but I haven't seen that information in this report. It's a little bit disconcerting that perhaps there's a gap in our due diligence in where we're going with this. Yes, I'd love an answer. Thank you.
Councillor Milburn, on the title, there is no purpose listed for that reserve, and after we've sought legal advice, we can actually transfer it to North East Water without having to remove that reservation that's on that title, on that land. So from as far as we can see, there is no purpose listed on the title, and I'm more than happy to get that title information to you. And we can transfer it over from council to North East Water with that reservation in place.
Thank you, Samantha. That's good. I've never queried the ability to transfer the reserve as a reserve. I don't have an issue with that as a matter of practice. It's just that I was a bit concerned what the purpose of the reserve was. If there's no purpose stated on the title and we don't have a course of history to follow to know that it was there for some reason for council to be responsible, then I don't think there's a particular problem with transferring it. On face value, it always has looked like something that fell through the net, and I think with the answer that you've given, I think that's probably adequate. Thank you.
Councillor, to kind of put everything in perspective, it's 45 square metres, so a double garage is 36 square metres. It's 9 by 5. It's about the size of a really large pool. So, you know, let's keep it in perspective of what it is, and this has, it absolutely looks like a missed thing way back when that sometimes just needs tidying up, and that's good enough for me. Councillor Watson, you moved? No. I should write this down. You did, thanks. Stop confusing me. Excellent, thank you. Thought I'd been completely losing it then. Rightio, councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Leslie, isn't it? 8.9, Gateway Island, Commonwealth Land Holdings. Councillors, a complex report. There is page 64 is a recommendation from officers. Do I have someone move this recommendation? Right, passes. Let's see if we get a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move it as written, except to include councillors present at the workshop. Council doesn't matter how many, yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a whole range of things about this which we simply don't know enough information right now. There's some things that on face value, when you read the agreement that was put in place, that seem almost contradictory, or perhaps are contradictory within the agreement. Talks about when the land might be handed and when it handed over to council, and what the context of that is, and then how the quarry, the term royalties is used. Whether it's royalties or rental, I'm not quite sure. Traditionally, royalties have been something that have been charged by a state, and rental is something that goes to the federal or to the landowner. I'm not sure what the royalties might be to the state. They may well be in addition to anything that we've got considered here in front of us. So there's a whole bunch of unknown things that come up about it. And I think it's important that we know and understand what the quarry licence requirements are, what the rehabilitation requirements are, what constraints and controls there are on the various land areas associated with quarry and licensing, what the obligations are on council in regard to other events like flooding and anything else that might happen that could impact on any of the land holdings. There's just a whole range of things. There's probably a heap more of things that I haven't brought up that we really do need to sit around the table with the relevant state agencies, landholders, Department of Treasury and Finance people, and any others that fall into the category of stakeholder in relation to this, and that we fully understand exactly what it is that are the conditions which we would be taking, I'll say ownership, control, whichever way it transpires, because this land is identified under the agreement as to be reserved land. So I think it's really important that we go down the path of understanding exactly what it is that we're stepping into. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'd echo my fellow councillors' words, especially since the Department of Finance come to us in December offering up this piece of land and wanted an answer by the end of January. The timeframes just don't seem suitable for with the way government moves normally. So this one raised a couple of alarm bells to me, I must admit, and I think the recommendation that was come forward with Councillor Mildren's addition there from officers is spot on. We need to find out more information. You know, what is the unknown here? And you don't know what you don't know. We need to find out a lot of those answers that Councillor Mildren's just raised, plus some, because there's going to be questions that we need to ask, and then there's going to be questions that we don't know that we need to ask, and we need to understand what they are as well. So I fully back the motion that Councillor Mildren's put forward and through the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the other councillors. We really haven't had the information that we needed to make a decision, an informed decision on this. And it wouldn't be prudent for the council to take this land transfer over if we're not fully aware of what the implementations of the transfer would mean to this council. There are many issues to consider. The proposed workshop would help bring together stakeholders, and this would help inform and iron out some of the issues of concern for determination by council. Before determination by council is made, it just makes sense for this to be done before we go bring it back and agree to take ownership of the transfer of land. So, yeah, totally agree with the other councillors.
Madam Mayor, this has been a long, ongoing, as in our notes, the land ownership goes back to community lays, goes back to when corporations started winding up in Wodonga. So getting all these facts and all in one room at one time, Madam Mayor, I think is a great thing, and then we know where we can go into the future. But at the moment, we need that clarification, and I think this will be really good because we all have an ownership on there, and we want to find out the best way forward for our community.
Councillors, I'd like to have a bit of a say on this one, and I'm probably not going to be as polite as what's already been said. Through no fault of our own, something was going to be handed to us that's an absolute mess. Feels a little bit like utopian. It feels like all government authorities have done that in terms of how the structure's been put together. And please, officers, this is not at you, this is actually at our other levels of government. This is a strategic piece of land that will have intergenerational consequences and impacts on our community, our tourism, our environment and our economics. So it's really important that we actually get this right. So the discussion that we've had over the last couple of weeks to draw these people to the table, to draw the other authorities to the table is absolutely essential. There is no way we could move forward with any sort of other agreement to sit over the top of and plaster over a mess. It just would not be either in our community's interest, and it certainly would not assist us going forward. We've done a master plan that sits over this site. It is integral. It will be about tourism. It will be about future opportunities, but it's also about our environment, and we need to make sure that we are across this 110%. So thank you for the motion, Councillor Mildren and Councillor Lowe. This is an important piece of work. Councillor Mildren, to you to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Indeed, in addition to all the things that might have come across as being a tad negative in the way I presented this, there's a whole array of positives that can come out of the other end of this, not least of which might even be a small revenue source to the council, which may well contribute to developing the Gateway Precinct up into what we intended to be developed under our strategy. There's a whole posse of opportunities that might come from it, but they're predicated on us getting it right at the front and knowing and understanding what we're walking into. Hence the motion, the way it's been put together. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, councillors. Motion is there before us. All those in agreement? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9.1, Two Cities, One Community Action Plan 2019 End of Year Report. Councillors, it was there in our attachments with some detail. The recommendation to receive and note the report is there on page 67. Do I have a mover? Perhaps one of our committee. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Second to Councillor Watson. Councillor Lowe.
Just a question for clarity first before I run off. Our regional deal prospect, who are we waiting to sign that? Through you, Madam Mayor, I think you know the answer.
That wouldn't be Dorothy Dixon, would it? Okay, so our regional deal is still sitting at the table waiting to be signed. We did think that we may have all levels of government ready to sign that before Christmas. However, that went by the wayside, consequently followed up by fires, kind of have gotten in our road in terms of working with the other levels of government. We are still waiting and dependent on state, particularly Victoria, to come to the table. We are continuing to work with them. It has to go before Cabinet. And the last discussion that we had with the Minister is it was in March when it will go before Cabinet at state level. So we continue to work with some sense of urgency to get this across the line so that we can get on and do the rest of the planning that dovetails into the action plan for Two Cities, One Community.
The reason why it's sort of clarity around that is because if we go through this action plan and the report on it, most of these items in here are historic or normal day-to-day stuff. And the concept of the regional deal kicking off the ground will start implementing new projects, new opportunities, and I think it's very important for our community on both sides of the border as a whole to start and getting these projects moving. None of us want to sit here and look at old documents and old action plans. We want to see new innovation, new attractiveness, and see what this, this is a historic event. This has never been done before. So this is opportunity for governments of all levels, all round, to really make a statement and really go, this is what can happen when we take out the border in between both of us and align what communities feel. So I think the government should get a little bit of a move on, is what I'm thinking.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I'm one of the councillors that sit on the Two Cities, One Community Working Party, and there are, I think, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 programs, maybe a few more that are 100% finished and finalised. And one of them, which everyone sees very clearly, is our signage coming into our cities. I hope to think that to go forward with this group, with this Two Cities One Community, as we look at the very high end, which Councillor Lowe has just been speaking about, is the very high end of our projects and things. And I think a good example would be is that the Two Cities One Community got together to do the Festival Art Culture, which will be happening next month. And then once I think this gets off the ground successful, that can just go back to our staff on both sides of the river. So, it sort of drops out of the Two Cities One Community. It's just two of our officers groups from both councils work together. So I commend the reports that's put before us.
Thank you, Mayor. Question to follow on from the comments you made just before. Do you think that the city's deal is tied up with the same politics that's seen the suicide barriers on Maloney Drive stalled and the works at McCoy Street intersection stalled? The funding is federal funding, as is the city's deal funding. Is it the same problem?
Okay, just get a bit of clarity. It's a regional deal, and we've got to be really careful with what we call it. There is only 3 regional deals that have been nominated across the nation. We are one of them. The other 2 are Bundaberg and Tennant Creek, and each individual city and us have been chosen quite differently for different reasons. The other projects that you mentioned were actually Liberal Party announcements, and given, and these are not my words, this is speaking to people in Canberra, given that the candidate did not get in, it doesn't beholden the party to actually deliver those. So again, no, not my words. That's what was told to us when we were in Canberra. And the last chat that we had around those 2 projects, that is what was said to me. It's just what was said to me. Not saying I agree with it, not saying it was right or wrong. I'm saying that what was said. The other items that have been promised, that were done, promised prior to, as part of the budget announcements, we do have letters in terms of funding agreements through for things like Barranduda Fields. I'm just trying to think of some of the others off the top of my head. I can't, they're gone. We do actually have signed documentation, but that's, it is separate from the regional deal. The regional deal, the work has been very clear in what has to be done there. It's very high and strategic in nature, and has been detailed many times to us, and the report has been received here to council and to the council meeting. I don't know if you want to.
I'd just like to say that there's certainly no indication that the regional deal will not be supported. It is, and there's a lot of work being done by council officers with our Albury counterparts and our Commonwealth and state counterparts to get ready for the signing. It's purely procedural in the sense that the Victorian government's decided that the draft statement of intent needs to go through Cabinet as a procedure, but no indication that it won't be supported. And in the background, we've been doing all that consultation preparation work so that when the statement of intent is signed, we can then sort of hit the ground running pretty quickly with our strategic engagement with our community and businesses. Thank you.
The other thing I think councillors would be beholden upon us to do is also to continue to thank our Albury counterparts who are continuing to work hard and closely with us. For example, today I had another discussion with Mayor Mack around cricket facilities and other items that are up for discussion, and we continue to work very closely. Having the relationship and having the ability to work closely as a united team is incredibly important. And I think your comment, Councillor Watson, around things like upstream, it moves into everyday business. Well, it's actually about a cultural change. It should be about part of doing business is looking to find those opportunities where we can work together, where it fits better for our community, where we might save funds, where we can do it better by working together, has to be part and integral in the thinking of our councils going forward, and absolutely that just epitomises it. Councillor Lowe, did you have anything for close? Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9.2. Gee, Councillor Mitchell, you've been waiting with bated breath to deliver this report. The recommendation is on there on page 32, and I bet you want to move it. You will move it. Excellent. Do I have someone second it? Councillor is equally as enthused. Over to you, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Clause 8B of our Audit Committee Charter states, the committee shall report annually to the Council, summarising the activities of the committee during the previous financial year. Accordingly, as Council's representative on the Audit Committee, I submit the written annual summary for the 2018-19 financial year. The Audit Committee meets 4 times per year to consider reports in relation to the finances and risk management activities of Council, including oversight of the internal audit function. Each meeting, standing agenda items include a financial report, investment report, risk report, and a forward planner and outstanding items report. These are presented to and discussed by the Audit Committee members. This written summary of the additional reports considered at each of the meetings during the financial year will be handed to Council's Governance Officer shortly for inclusion in the minutes of tonight's Council meeting. It is my earnest belief that the Audit Committee has performed exceptionally well throughout the year, bringing to the attention of Council a number of matters that, although not considered significant, were just the same issues that once addressed, ensure that Council continue to operate with acceptable and compliant boundaries for local government in Victoria. I would like to thank all members of the committee for their work throughout the year to gather together into a single room the volume of experience, the knowledge relating to audit that encompass this committee, and to participate in the evolved and structured analysis of our Council activities and practices is truly enlightening. The end result can only be deemed positive for our city and the community it serves. I thank you.
After we had a lesson today on this. I'd just like to thank Councillor Mitchell for stepping into our role and the summary of it. We all take ownership of, we can't be everywhere, and we have representatives, councillors do representative roles, and Councillor Mitchell is our representative on the Audit Committee to attend the meetings and summarise on our behalf, and I thank you for the work that you put in and the excellent report too, Councillor Mitchell, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Mitchell, for his summary of events, and I note that we get summaries of the minutes and so on that the Audit Committee does, and that's really great. However, I'm somewhat concerned, and I think Councillor Mitchell just referenced it by saying that the actual report's going to be handed in today and put as a copy into the minutes. I'm very reluctant to endorse something that I haven't yet seen. And I don't feel comfortable in voting in favour of this motion when I haven't seen the actual audit report.
I'm looking to you. When did we receive the copy of that report? I'm trying to remember when. September meeting.
So the report we're looking for goes back to that period. It's not a current. Okay, my apologies. Thank you.
Councillors, I think this is such an important committee, and what we have to remember is it's completely independent. It has some of the best quality committee members on that I've ever seen on this committee, and it is absolutely outstanding. They are doing outstanding work. But we're often accused as councillors of not having enough processes or checks and balances in place. But you look at the numerous list of government requirement, independent committees and independent audit committees that sit over and look at our processes, our numbers, the way we do business, right down to our OH&S and making sure our staff are safe. And they are numerous, they are onerous, they are rigorous, and I challenge anybody to say that we aren't over-governed in some ways, but also to suggest that there isn't enough checks and balances because, boy, it's thorough. And I reckon you've got to see a really good close-up bird's-eye view of that, Councillor Mitchell, sitting on that committee. A big thank you to the whole of the committee who do that work on our behalf, and it is absolutely on council law's behalf. We set the agenda, we make sure what is checked and what has oversight, and thank you for stepping in and filling that position, Councillor Mitchell, and also providing such great detailed reflection back to your fellow councillors. That has improved our sight, so thank you. Over to you, any close? No? Councillors, the motion's there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9.3 is Audit Committee minutes for November for information only. Don't think we need any further comment. So not seeing anybody jump up and down for those. 10.2 is the planning report for January. What did I skip? Did I do what? Did I do 9.3? Let's see if you noted. Sorry, councillors, I flipped over the page and saw for the information only. On page 73, 9.3 actually requires us to move the receipt and note the Audit Committee minutes. Councillor Mitchell, can I have you move those? Thank you. Councillor Bennett, second. Anybody need to speak against them? All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Now I'll whip through the rest. 10.1, planning report for December for information only. 10.2, the planning report for January. Again, for information only. Building report for November. You have a question? Go for it. Oh.
Just a quick question about the community centre that is getting built in Daintree. Could I get some more information about that one?
Mr. Reeve, that's a community centre at the Wodonga Gardens Retirement Centre.
Where to the side to the back? Councillor Bennett, I'll be inviting you to come out and do the official opening with me. They are a great bunch of people out there. We had a ball when I went out there last time, and I did have recent contact because I have a bunch of them coming on our next bus tour, and I did get an update, and they are absolutely ripping through that, and it's going up really fast. So we'll be out there having cocktails soon. Okay, item 10.4 is building report for December. 10.5, building report for January. There's a few consolidated here. Yeah, Councillor Lowe.
In fairness to Marketing 101 for endorsing retirement living. Just like to highlight the 4 independent living units in this report too. Out at Westmont. Yeah. Sorry, 4 dependent living units. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Yeah. Office.
Councillor, these are 4 dementia cottages at Westmont, currently to be constructed. There's also, from the plans we've seen, plans to do another 4 as well. I'm not entirely, I cannot confirm whether the $6 million is for 4 or whether it's for 8. I would suspect it may be for the 8, but I'll take that on notice.
Thank you for that. It's obviously much needed in our community. I won't make light of that because it's a very serious illness, and I'm glad that we're getting some facilities locally to handle that. Thank you.
probably just what you note on that same report, councillors, is the swimming pool register, the renew requirements. It's a free ad, making sure that anybody with a pool out there by April 30, you must register your pool. You can do it online. Hopefully we fix that. And they must be inspected. So regardless of age, all pools must now meet new criteria. So we're starting to list how many we're inspecting. The state government changed the rules and then get council to go out and make sure it all happens. You call that cost shifting.
The question just for the benefit of the people at home as well as here, what's involved in registering and why are we registering and what happens once you've registered?
Councillor, you put me on the spot. There's certainly a lot of information that's available on Council's own website. We also know that there's a self-assessment on the website, so pool and spa owners, I might add, can check on the website. They can do a self-assessment to see when their pools were constructed or their spas were constructed, and they then know when they need to be registered by, and they also need to know that they will then be able to determine when the pools or the barriers around the pools need to be inspected. Fees are also nominated on the council website, and once they've completed the forms, one of the council's building inspectors will be out to carry out the inspections and the approval or otherwise on the barriers.
Councillor, do you want a bit more detail? I'm going through the process. So anybody at home who's having trouble, if you just put your street name in, not necessarily your street number, it actually brings all of them up and allows you to nominate your own home. I had a little trouble. I thought it was the driver. Wasn't the driver. It is $79 and some cents to actually do that registration online. These are state requirements, not council driven. And then it's $160 and something, 10 cents, 11 cents, whatever it is, but $160 then to have your pool inspected, again, as per the requirements of the legislation. Then that inspection must occur every 4 years, again, as required by legislation.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Officer Schultz. Have council started inspections of pools already, or is that after the 13th of June? No, just so that, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Councillor, we have pools, so some of the property owners who have registered their pools early, we've commenced with those inspections, yes.
Thank you. Riveting, I'm sure. 10.5 building report is for information only. 10.6 competitive services report for December. Then we move on to the competitive services report for January. Councillors, if you just allow me, I've actually got a couple of questions on these and without notice, but I noticed on page 93 there's Stanley Street demolition and preschool refurbishment. I actually remember we did that, I'm going to say, 8 years ago. So I was surprised to see that in it. Do you know what that is? Thank you, Simone.
So, Madam Mayor, we have received a small amount of funding to do some upgrades into some all abilities access and bathroom toileting scenarios in a couple of our different preschools. So they're not large tenders, they're minor, but they help us to better service the families.
Well done, excellent answer. Can I finish and can I come to you? Is that all right? On page 93, there's also, you'll note that there's the architectural design and entrance to the Wodonga Sports and Leisure Centre. It is getting an old facility and it's something that I'm really mindful of as we do our planning each year as we go through. I know that sometimes it's about the access and ability access because I know it's pretty ordinary as it is. But I think going forward, councillors, in the next few years, we're going to have to seriously think about some investment in that facility, but it's good to see we've started some of the work. The other component to see on page 94 is the continued refurbishment of this building. We're slowly chipping away so that this building continues to provide service. I'm looking at those and thinking that that is actually the awful planning office, and it's not because the planning office is awful, it's just the conditions of the planning office is pretty ordinary for our team in there. And I'm thinking that that is the next part that we're doing at the engineer section. Okay, let's hope it's not over-engineered. So really just of note. And Councillor Lowe, you had some questions or comments?
Just comments on one that you highlighted actually. It was about the Wodonga Sports and Leisure Centre, and that's actually a perfect example of what Councillor Milton was saying earlier, that we could hand to our TAFEs / universities, because it's about design of an entrance and foyer area. So that's the size and scope, I think that's well within what some of our students would be able to produce. So.
Thank you. All right, so that was for information only. We've got the council plan progress report, unless there's any comments, again for information only. Is pleasing to see a lot of that is nearly at 100%. 10.9 assemblies of councillors, again for information only. Decisions register 10.10. I'm flicking through these councillors. 10.10, certainly.
So just on page 106, the draft single-use plastic policy, the status says the public consultation is underway, but public consultation has finished and a report is being written up, so just for the minutes to reflect that one.
Thanks, Councillor. Good to see that you have read your report thoroughly. Councillors, notice of motion of which there is none. There is petitions of which there is none. Council seal of which there is none. General business. Yep, Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, as I spoke earlier tonight in the 2 Cities 1 Community report, I'd like to bring to the community's attention the Upstream. It's a cultural and art festival for Albury Wodonga, where both cities have got together through the 2 Cities 1 Community, but more importantly through Officer Hogg, her team and the Albury team, who got together to put this fantastic festival together. So this is very much an ad tonight. Most of these activities or functions and things are free, but there are a few ticketed items. So please go through either the website or pick up in the foyer a copy of the program. But it's really up to us as a community now to support this. It's a festival we're bringing. Hopefully it's going to be something that will be here for a long time. But I'm really excited about it. I think our community should be excited about it, and I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. The only thing you missed plugging was the dates, the 6th to the 9th of March. Book it into your diary. There's 200 events to get to. Councillors, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Friday and Saturday I attended the National Climate Emergency Summit and Council Forum in Melbourne, and at the moment I am putting together and compiling a report that I will have great pleasure in presenting at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Two really quick ones. One was congratulate the organisers of the City to City yesterday. It was another example of one community. Speaking of 2 Cities 1 Community, John, and the way all the organisers and the participation numbers, although slightly down on other years, it was a well-registered event. The unofficial Albury vs Wodonga councillor times, I must congratulate Councillor Cone from Albury Council on registering the quickest 10-kilometre time. And the rest of us, well, we've got some work to do, is all I've got to say on that one. Don't want to know your time, John, no. And I was lucky enough to attend the 150-year celebration for Wodonga Cricket Club on Saturday night, which is why my time wasn't so great on Sunday. So I'll use these to commemorative stubby holders as an example. This was a really, really well organised event, and their theme for the night was to celebrate the club and not the personalities within it. And we all know that personalities within a club are what make a club, but it was a really good theme to the night to celebrate the club as a whole, because personalities come and go, and you know, the greats were rewarded, and there was so much documentation around the event of the club and the highest run scorers, highest wicket takers, but it was really about what the club entailed, and they have a family first approach there, and that's what really shone through on the night, that this club with 150 years is about family, and it probably signified what Wodonga and the community exemplify there. There was people told me once from Wodonga Historical Society that most history isn't documented until someone dies. You know, it's not until the funeral that someone tells a story about someone. And I'm really glad that this event come for the cricket club, because although it hadn't been done before, a lot of the hard work's been done now. The committee, which was what they refer to themselves, the Knights of the Round Table, I think they refer to themselves, because that, you know, there's a lot of drinking and there was a lot of arguing and there was a lot of everything, but they end up assigning eras and stuff, and people went and researched, and now it's been documented, it's been put on USB. So now moving to the next 150 years for the club, you know, that work's been done, and now they've just got to keep adding to it, and the history will stay there forever. And they also had a good win over East Albury, I think it was. North Albury? Yeah, on the day, yeah, which made the people on the hill very happy. Thank you.
Councillor, can I make a suggestion that we actually issue two of those letters, one to the cricket club and one to the city committees, to thank them for their work on behalf of the city and behalf of councillors. Well, we're also writing those letters, if we could also put one to Wodonga Tennis Club for hosting Country Week, largest country week ever. It's been going since 1974, I think it is. Some of the players have actually played all of them. I met a couple of the legends, they were absolute classics. And we saw 1,300 tennis players in town for a week, so it would be terrific to issue a letter of thanks to the community who absolutely work their tails off and are all volunteers. So that would be good. So we'll get 3 letters out to those clubs on behalf of councillors. For free? Do we need to do general business? If you really want to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move accordingly that all 3 people that you've just referred to, organisations, be sent a letter of appreciation from council.
Thank you. There is no urgent business. There is no questions tonight. We do need to move into deal with one item of confidential business, councillors. So can I have someone close this meeting to the public, please? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Gallery will be finish this fairly swiftly. I imagine there is only one item to deal with. So we will be joining you out in the foyer very shortly for a cup of tea. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Returning to open council, thank you for that. We now are required to adopt the recommendations that have been dealt with in the closed meeting of council and that they be adopted. Can I have someone move that? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Thanks, Councillor Watson. Is there any comment required? No. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. That allows me to close tonight's meeting and look forward to seeing everybody on the 16th of March. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Thank you to those tuning in at home.